That was a recreation of a fallen clip on how I like to use Mercenary Base. Hello everyone. Today we are reviewing our 4th spawner tower, the Mercenary Base. We are returning back to TDS to review its most recent spawner tower. So without further ado, let's review Mercenary Base. Starting off with the obtainment method, you need to reach level 150 in order to obtain Mercenary Base. Once you reach level 150, you will be able to claim it by just joining TDS or returning back to the main lobby. Mercenary Base requires no coins or gems. At least it doesn't now. After that, you officially have Mercenary Base. So before you place Mercenary Base, it must be noted that unlike other spawner towers like Elf Camp or Military Base, Mercenary Base must be spawned along the path within the tower's range. Otherwise, no units will spawn at all, making it useless. Now to start off with level 0. Mercenary Base has a placement limit of 3 and a base cost of $2,000, making it practically impossible to get it on wave 1, maybe. At level 0, it spawns the Rifler, a basic unit that has 40 HP. It spawns every 45 seconds. Surprisingly enough, it has a lifespan of 240 seconds. I don't know why, maybe to prevent unit stacking. Its method of attack is burst and collision. It does 5 damage per shot with a burst count of 6, meaning that it does 30 damage per burst. Its fire rate is 0.158 with a DPS of 10.72. The cooldown per burst is 1.5 seconds, and the aim time before it starts its burst attack is 0.35 seconds. Having a range of 18 and a limit of 10 riflers on the path, this unit performs somewhat well in the early game, although it is susceptible to being overwhelmed by large groups of enemies or enemies with a lot of HP, like the Fallen Heavy Zombie. Now for level 1, it costs $1,000 to upgrade it, giving it a total cost of $3,000. The base tower Mercenary Base gets a range increase of 2, giving it a total of 8 range. For this level, we are introduced to a new unit, called the Grenadier. This unit is a splash damage tower, and as said in the name, wields a grenade launcher. It has 50 HP, 18 range, an explosion range of 3, and deals 35 damage per shot. Obviously, it deals splash damage to other enemies, although less than 35 damage due to how splash damage works in TDS. It has a fire rate of 1.758 seconds, giving it a DPS of 19.91. It spawns every 40 seconds and has a limit of 7 Grenadiers on the path, with its lifespan being relatively the same as the Rifler with 240 seconds. This unit is the complete opposite of the Rifler. It deals with hordes of enemies with ease with its 35 damage in the early game. When stacked with other Grenadiers, it can even shred high HP, early game, enemies. However, it performs slightly poorly against fast enemies as it misses its shots due to its slow fire rate and due to the slow projectile travel speed. So although it would be a good idea to have pure Grenadiers in the early game, it would be a better idea to keep one Mercenary Base spawns as Rifler to deal with the fast enemies. For level 2, it's pretty short and simple. An upgrade cost of $2,000 and a total cost of $5,000. This upgrade just adds a new unit queue to Mercenary Base, allowing it to spawn 2 units at the same time. You can choose between the Grenadier and Rifler. It would be a good idea to keep a balance of both Grenadiers and Rifler to ensure you deal with enemies efficiently. However, depending on what you're dealing with, there are times where you may need to set both unit queues to only 1 unit. No new units for level 3. However, we get upgrades for both the tower itself and the units. The cost for this upgrade is $7,000 and a total cost of $12,000. For Mercenary Base, it gets another range increase of 2, giving it a total of 10 range, and gives surrounding towers within its range a 10% damage buff. With this damage buff, it is more suitable to place your DPS towers around your Mercenary Base. Either you can place Mercenary Base close to your DPS towers or vice versa. Now for the unit upgrades. The Rifler upgrades to level 1. The stats that are increased are its HP, damage, burst count, spawn rate, and DPS. Starting off with HP, It increases from 40 HP to 70 HP. Its damage from 5 damage per shot to 12 damage per shot with a now burst of 8, increasing its DPS to about 31 damage and 96 damage per burst. Everything else are minor buffs like range being increased to 23 and a spawn rate of 40 seconds. For the Grenadier, its HP increases to 125 HP, its splash damage to 65 damage, its fire rate to 1.5 seconds, gets a range increase of 1, its explosion radius increases to 4.5, and its DPS increases to 3. Level 4 costs $10,000 to upgrade, giving it a total cost of $22,000. For this upgrade, we are given another unit queue, and this time, another new unit. This one being the one everyone uses when they use Mercenary Base, the Riot Guard. Starting off, it has 1,200 HP, already a huge amount of HP for a singular unit. It deals 50 damage per hit every 1.5 seconds and spawns every 50 seconds. This unit is also the first to have a defense of 10%. It has a small range of 4, and the limit per Mercenary Base is also 4. It also takes about 4 seconds for it to start charging towards the enemy. This charge ability makes it so whenever a Riot Guard unit rams into an enemy during its charging phase, it knocks the enemy back with a knockback force of 15. It used to stun enemies beforehand, but no longer does. If you were to use this unit, it would be better for you to place Mercenary Base at a spot where the Riot Guard can charge up before attacking the enemy. Level 5 costs $15,000 to upgrade, giving it a total cost of $37,000. For level 5, we are introduced to a more unique ability and unit. Starting off with the ability, it is called Airdrop. And as the name would suggest, this ability airdrops the 3 units you have selected in the unit queue on your Mercenary Base. You can use this ability anywhere along the path, and it'll drop the 3 units. This ability has a cooldown of 75 seconds per use. Now for the new unit. This one is called Field Medic. The name is self-explanatory. It heals the units on the path, although it only heals humanoid units such as the elves from Elf Camp and the skeletons from Necromancer, along with the other Mercenary Base units. For its stats, it starts off with 300 HP, 30 range, a spawn rate of 35 seconds, and heals 5 health per 0.2 seconds, giving it a heal per second of 24. It can do this to up to 4 units at once as long as they are close to the Field Medic. It is usually best to only put 1 unit queue as Field Medic, as since it can heal multiple units at once, you don't necessarily need more than 1 to heal all of the units. The final level, with a whopping cost of $35,000, upgrades basically everything. Firstly, the damage buff percentage is increased to 20%. Everything else is unit buffs that make them pretty solid. For the Rifler, its level 2 has 250 HP, 18 damage per shot with a burst count of 10, a fire rate of 0.158 seconds, 1 second cooldown in between each burst, a DPS of 61, and a range of 28. Every other stat remains the same. The Grenadier gets almost 3 times its HP. Its stats are 300 HP, a splash damage of 100 with a fire rate of 1.3 seconds, giving it a DPS of 79.5. This unit also gets 10% defense like the Riot Guard, and a range increase of 1, 20 range in total. For the Medic, its HP gets doubled, and so does a heal. It has 600 HP, a heal of 10 HP per 0.2 seconds, giving it a heal per second of 48. The Riot Guard gets the biggest HP buff. It goes from 1,200 HP to 2,500 HP with a defense of 15%. But then again, it also has one of the least amount of stat changes. Its fire rate goes to 1 second from 1.5, and its charge time decreases to 3 seconds. Well, now that we've finished that long list of stats, it's time I talked about the strengths and weaknesses of Mercenary Base. Starting with its strengths, obviously, Mercenary Base is a great stall/defensive tower. It handles leaks relatively well, and with Riot Guard's knockback, it can make enemies take even longer to reach the base. Secondly, it's not too bad of a sub-DPS tower. The Rifler and Grenadier do really good damage, and that is only for 1 unit. If you were to put a full Mercenary Base as Rifler, it can deal up to 183 DPS. Mercenary Base also has every type of detection. Lead detection from riot guards, although it cannot target lead balloons for hardcore. Hidden detection from rifler and riot guard, and surprisingly enough, flying detection from the rifler, although it is somewhat inconsistent, so it is not recommended to rely on it for flying detection. Furthermore, Mercenary Base is a good support tower for your DPS towers. As stated before, it gives a 20% damage buff to all towers in its range. This can be very helpful for towers such as Accelerator and Ranger. For its weaknesses, its spawn rates are relatively long. Despite the units being somewhat OP, the cooldowns balance it out, because if all your units die in one wave, the next wave, you won't have the units to defend yourself. This is really apparent in some of the runs I did while trying to do solo Fallen with Mercenary Base. Other than, nothing really is wrong with the Mercenary Base. However, if we are talking about strengths and weaknesses for every unit, Rifler deals decent single target damage. It's great for clearing out weak hordes or enemies with its fast burst shots. It also has every type of detection, collision-based damage only for lead enemies, making it an all-rounder unit. It can also handle speedy enemies fairly well and deal some damage to bosses or mini-bosses. However, it also has the least amount of HP out of the 4 units, only having 250 HP, meaning that it dies fairly easily in later waves against more tanky enemies, making it a glass cannon with great DPS potential but can die easily. Grenadier obviously has great crowd control. When in groups, it can shred through any weak enemies like Fallens, and thanks to its slow walking speed, it can survive for even longer and stay on the path. However, that's really all Grenadier has it going for. It misses its grenades against fast enemies, or it only shoots 1 or 2 at them before getting overwhelmed and dying. It also does not have hidden detection, so it is prone to dying to hidden enemies, only being able to hit them via splash damage from its grenades. Field Medic is good for keeping your units alive from boss attacks like the Fallen King with the shield it provides to other units. It also keeps them alive for longer. To add on, its HP isn't too bad for dealing with enemies as it has 600 HP, but obviously, Riot Guard does a way better job at it. The only downside is that this unit cannot attack whatsoever, it only heals. Riot Guard is the best unit for Mercenary Base. It has the highest HP with 2,500, making it very useful against tanky enemies. Only 4 of them can already deal more than 10,000 HP thanks to their defense buff. It also knocks back enemies like stated before. It easily deals with huge hordes of enemies and overall is a great unit. The only minor complaint I have with this unit is that it sometimes just runs into spawn when no enemies are in the path, making it go wasted. But besides that, I really have nothing else to say. For abilities, the airdrop ability is a good way to reinforce your army and do more damage. It is best paired with Riot Guards as it can do way more damage to each bosses. However, if you are using this ability as to handle leaks or a last-second save, then that won't work as it takes a while for the units to actually drop down onto the path. The long cooldown also makes it so you can't constantly use this ability. Although it does cost $2,000 per use, it doesn't really affect you in the late game as you already have so much money to spend by then. Overall, Mercenary Base is a very great tower to use. It is used in many different strategies, and I would highly recommend people to grind for this tower. I would give this spawner tower a 10 out of 10 rating or AS rank due to how versatile, OP, and cool it is. The models are sick and the animations are very smooth. That concludes Spawner Tower review number 4. Hope you enjoyed the video. More Spawner Tower reviews will come later on. Check my community posts so you can decide which Spawner Tower I should review next. Goodbye and see you on the next video.